Right, Lori, I'm so excited to connect with you. I'm Katie, and today we'll be doing a little mini DQ session with the ohm codes. So before we start, I just wanted to share that it was so fun to read your application and hear where you are in your life. It really you're just in this beautiful place of your connectedness down to the microbes of the soil. I love how you even said that, and how you engage with your farm. I am just curious if you have any intentions generally for what we're going to be doing today. My goal is to really help you get some clarity around purpose. Um,
Okay.
and if there's anything you wanted to add before we jump in.
Actually, I feel like that is perfect because that's where I am is seeking clarity. I feel like I've been in a very expansive time and I've just been open to receive what the next steps are. So that sounds perfect. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, then we will just jump right into it. So we'll begin by just closing our eyes together. Breathing in that white blue light, we settle into this space. As we breathe in again, that white blue light, it'll trace across the brain, down the spine, and back up the front to go out the mouth. A few more deep breaths here. Breathing in that white blue light. The first thing we're going to do is go into the master cell, the pineal gland, which is the template for all the other cells in the body. And we're going to do a small DQ process, which and it could be a much more extended experience. But in this moment, just since our goal is to get you some clarity on purpose, we'll just kind of sense in the belly of the cell if there's any programming that's immediately coming up that wants to be seen. I'm just kind of feeling that sense of confusion, and almost like the world is your oyster. You have so many choices and possibilities and things that you could be successful with. Sometimes that feels overwhelming when you have all of that potential. So just kind of sensing that, maybe a little kind of dread related to that in the pit of the stomach there about making that choice and feeling like you may miss out on something if that choice is not in the most aligned opportunity. As that programming or limitation shows itself to us, we'll bring in the Lu or the luminous symbol telepathically. We'll just bring that in through the mind, watching it spin, taking this part of the cell back to 0 point. Just noticing how your body feels as that little bit of distortion begins to dissipate in the fullness of that 0 point. We'll bring in the scalar, the ska, telepathically through the mind, watching it spin, bringing in those 7 elements, the 7 rays of rainbow light, unhooking from the programming, the distortion, noticing an even deeper settling, a little bit easier to breathe, a little more expansiveness with each exhale as we continue to clear. We'll bring in telepathically the 33 pure source frequency, 963. Energizing, revitalizing the cells. As that spaciousness has arrived, we will go into the nucleus of the cell, into the DNA, and now I'm just kind of scanning along the DNA, asking for the codes related to the negative expression of your purpose, a blueprint of this moment of where you are to expose itself. And now as I feel that kind of little hitch there, 4, 7, 8, 3, 2, 9. And just noticing as we bring our attention to that spot, there's a change immediately just with the attention and of where the cell is kind of hooking into programming of that negative expression of your divinity. And just watching those particles dissipate, break apart as that process completes. We'll ask for the positive expression of your DNA in its divine blueprint purpose format, unadulterated by any programming. I'm getting 33, 8, 7, 2, 9, 4. Just witnessing as that positive code clicks into position, as your body begins to respond with more energy, with more luminance. Cells respond to that feeling of expansiveness. Just a few more breaths here to kind of enjoy that expression, that radiance of the unencumbered soul. We can come together and kind of read these codes. So in your negative expression, a way we can interpret that is what's happening when you're kind of forcing your blueprint, or you're maybe choosing from the second or third level of consciousness, which is that trying state or existing from the chemical body, what that might feel like for you. So the code you got, the negative expression, is the 478329. And what that 4 is saying to me is when you're in your negative expression, you're building from a kind of shaky foundation. So the 4 can represent the bones and the bodies, that foundation piece of maybe choosing from, the ancestral programming. Our ancestral memory can be held in our bones. So by kind of choosing somebody else's foundation for your blueprint, for your purpose, which leads you into the 7. So if you're making choices from somebody else's idea, somebody else's foundation, that information that's going to come through as the channel might also feel distorted. So it's almost like the shaky foundation kind of bends the information as it comes through your channel, so that information can't flow in that pure, smooth way that we can access when we're connected with our quantum body or with that source frequency. And that moves into the 8. The 8 can be the magician, the manifester. So when you're in the negative expression of the 8, it can be that sense of lack, of being cut off from your abundance. So if we go back to the 4, from a shaky foundation, from being just able not to trust the information that can come through, that creates that sense of lack. And when you approach the 3, that's the creator. In the negative expression, then you're creating from programming. You feel cut off from your creation. When we move into the 2, the negative expression of the 2 is being cut off from communication. So when you feel cut off from your ability to create or to follow that divine guidance, then what is there to communicate? It's through distortion, and it takes you right into the 9, which is the illusion or the matrix. So if we kind of go back to that code and read it as a complete sentence, when you're in your negative expression of your purpose, you're building from that unsolid, shaky foundation, which is distorting your ability to receive information, cutting you off from that sense of flow and sense of abundance. And it's encouraging creation from a place of distortion to keep you kind of hooked in the matrix. So obviously we don't want any of that. That sounds no fun. So we
That
want to move
sounds
you
like
into that.
looping. Okay. I,
Exactly.
I I understand that that all resonates, and I understand that. Yeah. Okay. There's just so much going on. It's yeah. It's a very busy time of year, and there's just been a lot of unexpected things popping up, and I think what I've become aware of is how my challenge is to not go where this just was about with looping and not staying connected to my divine expression and coming from that the higher levels of consciousness. And it's inconsistent, so I guess being aware of when you're going there and avoiding not, it's a process, but um, I'm in it and it's happening, and this is also great to be here with you, so thank you.
Yeah, and it's what I'm kind of hearing is like when you find yourself in those moments, you can ask yourself, okay, what foundation am I approaching this choice from, or this moment from? Am I approaching it from my 33 because you started out in the 33 in your positive expression, or am I starting out this choice from somebody else's house, from somebody else's foundation? So maybe that's something you could kind of play with in whatever language resonates for you, is like, okay, if I'm in a choice point that doesn't feel good, that's my sign, my body
Okay,
is something's trying to tell me. So that, am I in my -4 or am I in my positive 33?
sure. May I
Because the
ask a
cool thing
question?
about blueprints is it's kind of course.
I'm sorry. do those, when you're talking about the foundation and the communication, is that strictly coming from my DNA? Is that in part with the perhaps relationships in my life or my living situation? Does that have an influence, or is this strictly from my technology of my DNA?
This code is reading the technology of your DNA, but it's all connected. And so anything outside yourself is a reflection of your internal
Okay,
presence. So
thank
although
you.
we might, for communication purposes, interpret it as kind of separate, we know if we reference the seven elements or, that non-dual perspective, we know that the external is reflecting internal. So
Okay.
yeah, it's hard to separate them, but sometimes for communication, it's easy to talk about them as separate.
Sometimes when it feels like in life, there's like little pieces and then there's big, huge presentations of a lot of new stuff or challenges or changes and shifting. And so navigating a bigger piece of stuff, which is kind of where I would define where I am now, with just what's been happening. So maybe what I'm hearing too here through this with the coding, with the codes and what they're expressing right now, we're just focusing on the negative expression, is maybe it's probably beneficial to take it in those smaller pieces, try to break it down, because I think there's a bit of overwhelm at the moment with just the mass of what is happening. And part of that also is what I'm experiencing within my own vessel and my own evolution. So it's like huge, actually. So anyway,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's exciting though. It's
Yeah,
exciting.
and yeah, you really have so much potential. I felt that from the moment I read your story, and that was kind of coming up in your master style too, of that, okay, if I can do everything, where do you go from here? And so sometimes the idea of purpose is tricky for me because, how we have a whole lifetime to experience. How can we give ourselves a purpose to be the end all be all? But I like using these blueprints because it's just the purpose in this moment. It's just to get us to our next right step. It's just a moment in evolution. And so if you and I did this, let's say at the end of your bioquantum transformation journey, we might get a different blueprint because your consciousness is going to be in a different place. So all of this is really meant to be held quite loosely of what are we using as the tool in the moment when we know we're not in that fourth level of consciousness, but then we get to let it go and let the moment be new and let new information come in. And for me, that's hugely liberating, especially when you're talking about something like purpose, and especially for someone like you who has so much potential.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm having fun. That's my main. I want to stay
Good.
light
Yes,
and
that's a good
fun.
sign.
Yeah.
That's a good.
All right.
And I love that you say that because when we look at the positive expression of your purpose blueprint, you're starting out in the 33. So you start out as a master. You are a master. You are divinely connected. And so when you can approach these moments of a decision, and I guess I keep coming back to a decision because purpose feels like very much like, okay, you need to know what the next right step is for your farm and some of the other things that are happening in your life. When you can approach those decisions from knowing your mastery, everything else that follows is going to flow beautifully. And it's interesting, I'll jump ahead to the end of your code. At the end of your positive expression, you end in a 4. So in the negative expression, you're starting from a 4, whereas in the positive expression, when you're in your divine 963 quantum body, when you start your mastery, the 4 naturally unfolds at the end of your sequence of the blueprint. So I think that's kind of cool. After you're 33, when you're in your divine mastery, comes the 8, which is that divine heart, that manifester. So when you're able to hold your mastery, the divine abundance flows right after that. And that's your birthright through this blueprint. There can be no other way. And then once you're in your mastery, holding that open heart, you have the 7, which allows that information, that guidance to come through, not from that distortion point of the negative expression, but just flow through your divinity, through your heart, and give you your guidance in the next right step. And then we get the 2. And so that's interesting. You have the 2 and 9 in order in the negative expression, but when you're in that positive expression, that allows that divine communication to come through, emanate through the fascia, through the light body to communicate outward, to be your bridge into the 9, which is living outside the matrix. So in your negative expression, that communication through distortion is kind of holding you into the matrix. But when you're approaching your purpose, your choices from the 33, your information will flow through you as the bridge to continue to create outside the matrix, outside the 9, and into that divine 4, that positive expression of the 4 of alchemy, of turning whatever you're working on into gold. And it all starts from you holding and trusting and knowing your mastery.
That's
How does that feel?
okay. Feels good. I just, um, this whole entire process with everything has been just the unfolding of divine perfection in timing. I just, it's like a place that I want to live from, and I appreciate being there. And so being with you all and just participating is great. But what so much is undefined at the moment. And there's a lot of things that are kind of percolating in many different areas of my life, personally and with the property and just with some of my other kind of activist work that I do with water and there's just been a lot going on with everything. So I'm certainly not without challenge. And I guess that's a good place because I could never become bored or, for whatever reason, I'm creating that also. So I'll have to go back. I will receive this recording, I imagine. I'd like to get more into the numbers
Absolutely.
and really kind of reflect upon those aspects of my DNA in a deeper way because this is somewhat new. But I have definitely become aware of the activation of the different strands and by doing the body ascension class. And so that kind of gives me a framework and a little bit of a background to delve into these things. And I have felt I'm pretty aware within my body the shifts and changes. So I'm excited. We have a few more weeks of the class, but
Absolutely.
so this is kind of just a snapshot in time of my DNA through this kind of reflection. That's so moving forward,
Yeah.
I take this information and reflect upon it and integrate. Essentially, staying out of looping is the greatest challenge, I guess, for all of us, right? Maybe not for all of us, but for me
Oh
right
my
now.
gosh. Yeah. Actually, I definitely, I vote all of us. I guess I don't know for sure either, but that's the human condition, right? Is
Okay,
to
yeah.
experience this looping in this pattern. Our brains are wired that way to be that way. So, what we're trying to do or allowing to happen through the quantum body is definitely breaking through the biology of how our brains are wired. So I definitely, I'm sure most of us listening to your story will resonate with that because that is the work. And so you could use ohm codes for lots of different ways. So ohm codes, the part where we read the negative and positive expression of the code, could be done just through like a part of your bioquantum session where, say, you had a pattern, a specific pattern you were trying to break through, you might read the codes on that. When we use it for purpose blueprint or career blueprint or a relationship blueprint, what this particular version is showing us, okay, here is the negative expression is the negative pattern or the looping pattern. And then the positive expression is showing you how to step into your mastery, how you could be experiencing it through your mastery. And so Jules will sometimes say, do you want to be here or here? Do you want to choose from programming or do you want to choose from your quantum body? Your negative expression is kind of that lower expression, and I use lower lightly. Your positive code is more of that expanded quantum expression of how you could approach those choice points. So it's probably been a while since you read what you wrote, but when you described where you are in your life for your application for the show, you talked a lot about your connectedness to nature and your presence on your farm. And so when I was versus feeling into your 33, it feels very much like you could use that. That's you in your positive expression. When you're just sitting on your land and you're just breathing and you're in the flow of that divine connectedness down to the microbes of the soil, that's you in your 33. Versus maybe you and your -4s when you're trying to make something happen. You're maybe trying to contact the person who's supposed to buy the property, or you're trying to make something happen through, and that's that negative expression. So in those moments where you feel the pattern trying to turn on of, oh, I'm trying to do something, that's where can you connect back to your part of yourself that's in that 33, in the stillness in your property with your land, and then approach the whatever you have in front of you from that place. And that's kind of how you live the positive expression.
Yeah, it's the connectedness to nature is a huge aspect for me, and just with animal, a lot. I truly, when you do farm, it's definitely not a mainstream thing, I don't think, today, and just what I've witnessed by things we've done. Yeah, yeah, it's when we have the challenges of the stimulation and things going on, that this is good because it's given me sort of a template or a place to start with. And I'm not going to take it all at one time. I'm going to break it down and evaluate um, from the negative expression, and maybe try to integrate some of those codes. But ultimately, it's catching yourself before you go from here to here. Right? That's
Exactly.
so. But and as we reprogram, and kind of our neurology also changes, does it not? That we rewire things so that the the response that we may have had before is not even physically wiring and connecting anymore. We're connecting, and kind of everything is operating from that higher redefined connectedness of the neural pathways. That's what they call them, right? Neural pathways. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
okay. Okay. I mean, even like if I can, I have seen the um, acknowledgement of how the perfection of the divine expression in everything, and I can relate to it, like relate to it through the soil. I don't recall exactly what I said in my application, but the the viruses and the fungi and the bacteria communicate with one another, and they, when they're given a certain, it's kind of like us with our frequency, when they're allowed to do what they do naturally and live at their highest level, they create something very dynamic and vital within the soil, and we can witness that when it grows in our field. And so that's the way I can say I'm connected to it, because we actually apply carbon to our fields, humates and fulvates, and they are essentially the foundation of all life. And ironically, we're going out of the carbon, but I can appreciate it on that level. So
Yeah.
that's a way that I'm able to comprehend and understand things in my own experience, if that makes sense.
And just when you're it was that's gorgeous. And how your body felt when you were sharing that, that's how it feels to me when you're in your 33 with what you were just sharing. Like your body was held in that mastery, that divinity of that moment. And so that's another way, if it's easy for you to kind of read how your body's feeling, to know when you're maybe acting through a pattern of the positive expression or acting through the pattern of a negative expression too. Because I could feel that when you were speaking for sure.
And I do many other things. I mean, farming is just what I'm doing right now. I've done so many things in my life, but um, I want to I want to be present, fully present in everything that I do. So right now it's farming. Yeah. Anyway, that's also probably interesting, but no, that's the 33 was the number that came in the retreat.
One last thing is when you're 33, it almost feels like it doesn't matter what you're doing because you are you're holding the 33. So anything that's happening around you is just external dressing allowing you to experience yourself as the 33. And I was really feeling that in your mastery and your positive expression. So just another thing to play with is like, does it even matter what you do because you are
Okay,
pure source frequency?
makes
Just a
sense.
new
And just reflecting upon my life of, I almost feel like, and I'm like an investigator of life itself. The And I really, it's interesting how I've gotten to this place. I mean, where we're really talking about frequency, and so definitely I can see the culmination of my life and my life experiences to this point. But thank you. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the part of us that thinks we have to have one purpose might be that negative expression of the four. That's somebody else's foundation to their house that you think that we think we have to have one purpose. But for you, you're living the fact that anything you do when you're in your mastery turns from coal to gold. That's the four, how you end in your positive. So it's just pretty cool to see. So I can't wait to see how this rest of the
Thank you.
transformation unfolds for you because you are a master.
Well, regarding purpose, since that's really what our focal point is for this, is I don't have, I'm not, I'm open to what is presented for me to go, which is a very undefined place. And I think it's come more since I've been working with Jules, to trust that whatever my place is within everything is going to be the most beneficial to me as a being, and also to the community as a whole, and everything. So that I'm totally open where I end up and where I go. I mean, obviously we have to live in the 3D and keep everything going, and it's amazing how much I've already shifted and changed. So I'm having an amazing time. And but it's not about me. It's not about my ego. I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to be anything. I'm not defining myself in that way. I'm defining myself more through the ability to hold frequency and to resonate and be present fully in that as much of the time or all the time as possible. I guess that's my greatest challenge. So,
Yeah. And that's beautiful. That's you and your 33. Makes total sense.
okay. All right. Because do we all come with our own kind of playbook, so to speak, or intention for incarnation or for life? Do we get in? Yeah.
You know, that will be interesting when Rebecca does your session. It will be based on the moment you were born. So it's based on that first breath of your astrology. So there are some kind of landmarks that maybe are more fixed in our lives. But beyond that, I would say it feels like to me it all can be new in every moment.
Okay. Very
But
good.
that's where I am today. That who knows, that could be
Okay.
next.
All right.